Welcome, everyone. I'm Pat Mitchell. This is The Truth Behind the Trade. This is a series where we go over with members and non-members of Tricktrades, and we analyze their trades. We go over and we talk about their thought process during the trade, and we get into some of the issues that they might be having, hopefully getting them over those hurdles. So we have, of course, Adam joining us today. He's going to be taking more of a producer role and help us out with loading some stuff up if we need it. And we have Eric. Eric is the member. He's part of the members series. Eric's been with us for quite a while. He's been trading for in between the 1 and 2 year mark. So he's relatively new at this. And I think that's one of those things that, a lot of people kind of overlook. They think when you're like a year or a little bit over a year, you're really far into your trading. And that's one thing that I want to talk with Eric, because he's doing quite well. I remember where I was in a year, and although I had, some level of consistency from where I was there to where I'm now, there's no comparison. So it's just constantly like an ongoing process. So welcome, Eric. Thanks, buddy, for, joining us and especially putting yourself out there. And because I know it is a lot to handle, to be on camera and to basically just put yourself at the mercy of the trade. So yeah. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
So what's your background?
So I'm a nurse practitioner by training. I've been since 2000. And so I work in an emergency room now. I work the fireman's hours. I do 24-hour, sometimes 36-hour shifts. So I don't have to go to work 5 days a week. So I have more time to trade is how I've set up my schedule. I've been doing that for coming up on 25 years at least, maybe even 30. I forget how long. It's been a long time.
Nice. Yeah. Nice. So you obviously a very busy, stressful job, or at times it can be stressful, I would imagine. And and I think that that's something too that should be always noted. When as a trader, it's like, it's all about the balance between your inside life and outside life. Your inside life being trading when you're in front of those charts and everything. And I've talked about this 1,000 times, like everything kind of, it's going to either help or hinder you from that outside life. Like even something as small as somebody flipping you off in traffic or something like that, that can have an effect on your trading. You get into a little bickering match with your wife or whatever, your partner. It's like that can happen. And that's what a lot of people don't take into account. So what type of work do you do to kind of mitigate that, if any? Like, do you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I get to work nights as part of the job. And so I have to be really careful of when I go to trade. It's like, did I actually sleep well on when I got home? Yes, no. And if no, it doesn't matter how good I think I'm trading. I probably shouldn't, because I'm going to make a mistake. And sometimes it takes more than a day to recover, depending on how long I was up, and that's really frustrating. But I've learned from mistakes that it's like you just got to be human. You can't try to do everything, because I'm just amazed at how stressful is the right word. How mind intensive, how trading forces you to interact with yourself on ways I never thought I'd have to deal with them. I thought I had myself figured out. Nope, not at all.
Yeah, that is the truth, isn't it? And it's grossly overlooked, because when we first get into trading, we get sold the lifestyle after you make it, right? And that's why everybody gets into trading originally, is to make money, to either pay their bills or have excess money. And although that's something that is going to happen as long as you don't tap out and you keep pushing forward, you're going to have most likely more money and more freedom than you really know what to do with. But it's getting to that point, right? So we get sold that lifestyle first and foremost. We don't get sold properly on what this actually is and how much personal work. And that's why there's so many of my videos just dedicated to working on mentality and working on yourself. Like that's more important than any technical, fundamental news release, press release out there, is working on yourself. And it's really overlooked. So what kind of stuff do you do besides, maybe keeping tabs on your work? Like, do you do you try to work on yourself? And if you don't, that's fine. We can try and fix that with a couple of quick little tips, even just for that starting point. But is that something that you try and do?
Yeah, I write down. I mean, I try to identify what areas I think I need to work on, and the list was a lot bigger than I thought. So I try to pick one that's like, okay, now I'm going to work on this part. Like, let's not be greedy. That's an easier one for me now that I've kind of worked it. That's kind of hard to swallow though, because I'm a guy that's not supposed to be greedy. I'm supposed to be giving and generous and all these things. And I find out when you get into trading, I am just waiting for the big sell. But what I found is that if you do the disciplined thing, for greed in particular, it's like, okay, I am entered in correctly, and now it has moved down. Let's say it comes down to the 9. I need to get out no matter how much profit I have, because the way I understand it, that's what I need to do, because that's trading well. I don't want to. I want to hang on to it longer, hoping that it comes down, moves in my direction further. But at the first sign of support resistance, you have to take something off. And I'm like, I don't want to, but that discipline of you have to do that. That's one way that I do it. So what I've found is that with trading, which I never thought would happen, you pick whatever you're working on and decide, here, if it does this, I'm going to do that every time, no matter how I feel or what I think. You're doing the discipline. You're not doing your feeling, which to me was life-changing, because I didn't think I was a feely type of person, but it comes out I kind of am, particularly around money.
Yeah, and you have to be. Like, I'm not an overly in touch with my emotions type of person either. I come from, a very blue collar background, where it's not acceptable to be that way. Like, you don't talk about your feelings. I'm surrounded, or was surrounded by people that, these are rough, hardened men. They work out on the rigs. They're pipeline welders, from the person that I am now to the person I was then is very different. But you have to evolve, you have to change. And a lot of people don't want to change, and they think it's harder than what it is, because you know what it is too, just thinking about it, you see all of this stuff on especially social media about people that are, into working on themselves and everything, and it's flaky bullshit, and they're just so full of themselves. Like, I just put out a post the other day about this guy. Like, just the stuff he says, it's like, it's so unrealistic that the average person, you just turn the average person off when you're saying things like that. It's too difficult. Like, the barrier to entry, even just the language they use is like, it's these made up word salad terms that don't mean anything to anyone. And there's no substance there, right? It's just nonsense. And I think that's what scares people off from once you start just talking about working on yourself. But it is something that we need to do. And it's not that difficult. Like, I'm a huge advocate of just like sitting back and thinking. And it's no secret either that I use magic mushrooms from time to time. Now, I microdose, but I also macrodose as well. Now, I'm not saying that that's everybody's bag. What I'm trying to get at is I use those they're a total tool. It's not to get all messed up and just to trip out. It's like, I'm not interested in that. I'm using that so that I can turn myself inward and really think about things. And it's like, I love just sitting in a quiet spot and just getting lost in my thoughts. That's how we discover what's actually down below, because we're kind of taught to bury things. Like, we can't, as men, we can't show emotion, right? Like, and I think with you too, especially Eric, your job doesn't allow you to express that side of you. You can be caring and nurturing, yes, but you need to have your game face on when the shit hits the fan. You're not allowed to freak out. Not that you want to freak out, but I'm just saying that your job, something you've been doing for 25 years, which is a long time, that's hard to break those certain things. But I think as much as a negative that can be, it's also a positive, because in front of the charts, now that's a different story. So in front of the charts, you need to access that serial killer mindset, that blank stare, dead face, focus. And it's like, I think you need to tap into that, man. Tap into that shit, because you're already fucking there, man. right? Like for the past 25 years, you've been programmed in your job to be that blank face, dead stare, right? Action, just fucking action, just getting after it. Like no emotion, no like, oh man, this guy's bleeding out, or oh, this guy's like, his arm's all fucked up. And it's like, you're not allowed to think about that. It's just about fixing that problem. What's the problem at hand? Well, in your case, for your outside life, it's mending that broken bone, or putting some wound dressing on because this fucking guy's bleeding out, right? That's the charts. With your inside life, that's the charts, man, right? Like you can't react emotionally. So it's like, I think you need to, that's step number one, access that. Like just go full tilt nurse mode. Like be that guy. Be the guy that you already are. Like it's not even something that you need to change. You're already there, right? So I think that's like kind of step number one before we get into the actual trade that we're going to dissect. Now, the one question that you had, and we might as well address that now. So Eric's question that he wanted to know, because I make the distinction between blue collar and white collar people. They're two very different sets of people. There's one that is very hands-on and just like, I guess, action-based. And then there's, or more, now don't take this the wrong way. They almost have to, it's more street smarts or common sense type of thing. And I know that that's the wrong words to use. And it's not meant to be dismissive or like anything like that. It's just the best way to put it. So the blue collar, the ones that kind of work with their hands, the carpenters, the welders, the mechanics, the so on, the custodians, they're the ones that work with their hands. They, on a day-to-day basis, they have to access more just common sense, and that's it. They're not looking up some sort of technical manual or some sort of textbook. They don't need to access that. For the most part, they don't, right?
Right.
White collar do. They follow certain protocol and they need to act a certain way at all times, or else HR is going to be on your ass. And sure, the blue collar industry, no matter what, it's starting to go that way. One of the reasons why I left. But anyways, I digress. But those two different sets of people, they are different. They have to act differently. It was acceptable at my job to spit and swear and call my foreman a cocksucker if I got mad at him. I could say that. And we would have a yelling, screaming match and it would be over. Now, can you do that in your job, Eric? No. You can't do that, right? And I wouldn't even say that you're necessarily white collar, because you're working with your hands and applying common sense. So you're in that cusp. And I think that can get a little twisted sometimes too, right? Where it's like, what side of the spectrum am I? And you're almost in the middle, but that's a fucking good thing too. Like to be able to access both, that's kind of what you want. But to answer your question, those two people or sets of people, the white collar is more analytical and they are thinkers, right? Where the blue collar is more of a doer and they're just about action, right? They're not gonna, it's like shoot first, ask questions later, right? Where the white collar is asking questions first and then shooting. So do you see how that can be an issue? On both sides, there's issues and they're both separate issues we need to address. But with you being in the middle of that spectrum, I think that's a bonus, because although you can overthink things, and you probably do, but you probably come up with solutions pretty quickly, but both sides need to be addressed. So when you're overthinking, you're going to get paralysis by overanalysis. I know everyone's heard that term, right? That's something that you need to start working on, just like period, full stop. You're going to have to. You're getting lost in the information. So do you know when I say things like, just take the trade? And I know it sounds like so simple, but that's exactly what I mean. And my style, and I'm sure you've heard me refer to it as a sloppy style. Now, it's not sloppy like it's all over the place, but where I get the term sloppy style is from one of my heroes, Keith Moon, amazing drummer for The Who. And that was his style, was sloppy style. It was more from the heart. It was just rip it. Just let it rip. It's not technical, but it works. And this is what's important. Now, don't get the word technical and technicals mixed up.
Right.
We still need to follow technicals. But it's that letting yourself go in the moment and just let it go. Just fucking take the trade. That's what that means. And it's it's the simplest of terms, but I think it's one of the hardest things to put out there. Like, what do you mean, just take the trade? Just fucking take the trade, man. Just like, don't overthink it, execute, okay? So with all of that said, the issues that I'm seeing with you, Eric, because I've seen you done this before, and we're about to share Eric's trade here, but the issues that I've noticed that Eric has is he likes to keep going. It's constantly being in a trade where he's going to work that chart to death, okay? And you're going to see what I mean here in a minute. But that's something that all of you watching this, if you have this problem, listen up, because this is going to save your ass. And I hope I get through to not only Eric, I hope I get through to everyone. Now, a note, a little caveat before we get into this. What I'm about to tell you, you can immediately implement. It's actionable advice. Do not beat yourself up. This is not going to fix you immediately. It does not work that way. The idea behind this is being aware that this is happening and that's what you're doing. And instead of it doing that 3, 4, 5 times a week, next week, you're going to do it 2 times. The week after that, you might bump it up to 3 times. You're going to catch yourself though, because you're going to hear my voice in your head. And then after that, the following week or a month later, now it's only down to 1 time a month or a week. And then you see how it just progresses like that. So don't think for a second that this is going to fix you today. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
And this is why we need to continue to work on ourselves too. Okay. So before we rip it and send it right into your charts, do you have anything can you think of anything or any questions that you might have?
So I do want to ask a question, and I'm glad you took the chart, because as I look at it, I don't know what you're going to say. That's why I threw it at you. It's like I corrected myself and go, I wonder what Pat would say. I think I'm right, but I probably ain't. But I've been trading out of my a retirement fund. I have more money in my retirement fund than I do in my trading account, and I've been doing better mostly on some day trades, mostly on the swings, but sometimes even on the day trades. And I can't seem to understand why. Why am I doing so much better with a bigger account than I am with my smaller one? And I think it's fear. But I'm not sure about that. But I would love your opinion on that.
Okay. And even without looking at it, so you mentioned you swing trade out of that. So what is swing trading? Swing trading, hands off.
Yeah.
You see how you're not fucking on top of it, trying to like micromanage? That's it. That's what immediately, even without looking at it, I know that that's what's going on. This is why I try and stress swing trading to people, to traders at the beginning, because it lets them know that they don't need to look at these positions 24/7. You set it, you have stops in place, you've mitigated your risk. Now you need to let it fucking work. So that's that. But like you said, though, the smaller account, you're going to have way more attachment to. You just will. A larger account, what's that? More wiggle room, right? If you have, let's just use a nice round number of $30,000 in account, and you have a smaller account of $5 grand, $3 grand, $5 grand, 10 grand, whatever. The amount's smaller.
Yep.
Well, which one do you care about more? That smaller one for some reason. Right. It's weird how it works. You have way more money in this one, but you're allowing yourself that wiggle room. There's breathing room there. Okay. So that breathing room in the larger account, you know that you're not going to blow up on a single trade in that thing. Like, it's like, it would be pretty hard to do. Like, you would have to be really fucking up, right? It's doable. You can do it, but it's probably the odds of that happening are a lot less. That smaller account keeps you on your toes. There's like almost like that air of danger right behind you because it can happen. And that's what it is. It's almost like that perception of fear. You're kind of just like putting that fear onto that account just through that. You don't notice you're doing that, but that's what's going on there. But a lot of that with swing trading, you're just hands off. You're hands off. You understand that you have to hold for multiple days and you are not to stop out until you get stopped out.
Right.
But on a day trade, because you're in front of those charts, you're going to hover over it and you're going to stop out before you should have stopped out in a lot of situations because you see it coming down and you're in long and it's like, oh shit. And you start panicking before you need to panic, so to speak. Right? So that's that right off the hop. I think that's something that should be addressed and definitely start working on that. Day trading, as much as you are in front of those charts, and this is what I say like all the time, like how many times have you stopped out in a trade that you shouldn't have stopped out and then it goes in the direction that you want? Tons, right? So make it difficult, put barriers in place. And a lot of people get freaked out when I say this, but if you actually do it and you run this drill, take the batteries out of your mouse. It's one battery and it seems super crazy, right? But it isn't. How long does it take you to put the battery back in the mouse? It's only a couple of seconds. Those couple of seconds are not going to damage you, not with the stocks that we trade. These aren't super crazy volatile penny stocks. They're not, right? So we know this. We know that we're safe. So until you need to get stopped out and stop out, then you put the batteries in and stand up. Take a couple steps back. Stand up and watch those charts. Go grab a coffee. Go for a quick little walk. It's not going to hurt you. Like it won't. There's no amount of damage that can be done within a minute or two that is going to like just be super damaging to that trade. It just won't because we have our risk, right? So once it breaks that level, when it breaks that, there's still quite a bit of time that we have before we need to technically stop out. So do not allow yourself to stop out. If you're having problems with that, put barriers in place until you don't no longer need those barriers. It's just like little things that we can do, but I can say this shit 1,000 times. Right. Are you going to fucking do it? And that's the thing. Like you have to be that nurse, be actionable on this, like take action on it, right? Like if you know that you need to dress a wound a certain way, then do this a certain way. There's no difference. Right. There's a major disconnect between trading and the real world, and there is no difference. Right. And again, I think this is why the pure blue collar generally get their shit together a little bit quicker because it's just, that's how we're trained. It needs to be done a certain way or you're going to get fired or it's not going to meet code or it's going to fail x-ray. You just have to do things a certain way. That's it. And that's where there can't be any lenience, right? Okay. So if there is lenience, put stop measures in place for yourself, right? We have stop set on the charts. So put stop set on your desk. It's easy enough to do, and it's going to buy you a few extra seconds. And sometimes that's all it takes to realize it's like, shit, I don't need to stop out, right? We need to catch ourselves, right? Like that's the thing. It's about catching ourselves. So anything else before we rip it into the charts?
No, that's it. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it.
Okay. So I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, so first let's go into these charts. And so number one, the first thing that I see that needs to be corrected, I have SPY here up in the left-hand side, just like you do. Mm-hmm. I always have Apple where AMD is. Okay? Your charts are, and Qs is where Apple is. Okay. Now, I know that it doesn't seem like it's a big deal. And Adam actually informed me that, well, I should ask you first. Why do you have your chart set up like this?
Well, I'm not exactly sure. Other than I think it's the way we always used to do it, or I've done it that way for a long time, or maybe. I noticed
Okay.
it did change a while back, and I didn't change it because I was too comfortable with this, and I didn't know why we changed. Maybe, but
I
that's all I
see.
know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I would first recommend changing it. It's going to take a day or two to adjust, but that's
Yep.
okay. And the reason why I say that is I talk with my mouse in the room.
Yep.
Like this is directly, this type of advice is focused towards a member, okay? Not so much a non-member, or just like the public kind of watching this. So the reason why you should do that is if my eyes are up here, now your eyes are down here,
Yep.
right? And it's like that doesn't necessarily help. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
I think that that's something that should be adjusted.
okay.
So just for reference here, folks, this was a screenshot of our levels for the day of February 23rd. And this day was a day that I told Momentum members not to go short. There would be shorts there, but there's a reason for this. So on the 23rd, we were breaking and gapping up over all-time highs on SPY. We were breaking out or gapping up above a range here on Apple. AMD the same, and Qs gapping up over all-time highs with no more resistance overhead. There's very little resistance there. Therefore, if shorts attack, you might get a really quick short, but you will get squeezed out. So that's the reason why I said we're not looking for shorts in this. We will wait for the long. Now, it actually set up for us perfectly for a short. Now, our strategy, it's no secret that at the market open, it's first directional pick. So at the market open, if we pop, we come up, we are looking for a short into a level of resistance. But as I just explained, there is no resistance. It's only natural resistance, which would be like a price point. And that's not good enough in these situations because you need heavy resistance when there's a lot of volume in the market. Okay, so if I'm throwing around a lot of technical terms for you, it's okay, but just remember, if you're above, there's nothing above that point. Be careful. And I always err on the side of caution. There's a way that we can short these charts, but the way that it was trading a week ago, it was very, very squeezy, okay? And Apple's chart, which is the trade that we took, okay, this here is setting up beautifully. It's coming out of a dip, okay? It's coming out. It's already sold off quite a bit. It's ready to come up. Now, if you look at where Apple, can you guys see my cursor? Can you see this cursor?
Yeah, I can see it. Yep.
Okay, so where it's opening up here, we're actually opening up over all resistance. Now, that can easily squeeze. So we're looking for a long, and we're looking for a long. Now, when it sells off, we're going to start in at the previous close and then this 200 SMA area, okay? So that's the trade. So now let's take a look at Eric's entries, and it basically does exactly that, okay? We open up, we dip down into that level, we execute. You can see the blue entries here are his executions. Execute, pay yourself. Now, it doesn't look like much, but if you actually take a look percentage-wise, it's not too bad. His entries around the 210, 220, and the exit up here is in and around 250. Now, again, it doesn't sound like much, but remember, we are working the chart. We're looking for a very specific hurdle to get our traders over, which is adding and averaging, okay? So it fails, okay? So as it comes back down into that level, we take a small add. It fails. Get out a little bit on that retracement back up. As it washes into the level that we are watching, we add. We take a secondary trade. We're adding in this. Pops up, but didn't come up quite enough. Pulls back. There was an opportunity to add here. Eric was a little late on this add. Okay, so I'm noticing that you got a little bit of a chase here, Eric. Okay, we need to take it as it's just confirming. So a little bit late on that. You could have corrected that average a little bit more, but that's okay. I'll let that one slide. But a beautiful exit on that push. So as it comes back down, he is adding again, okay, which maybe he should have stayed away from. Beautiful trade, managed, and it's still selling off. But let's give him that. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt on this. Adds one more time. And the reason why I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt is if we go into this, if you look at the distance, so distance is very crucial here, guys. Okay, it's very important. When we open here at 185 and we sell off straight down to 183.50 with no major retracement, that is unnatural movement. That's what's going on here, okay? So unless there's a major catalyst, it will retrace. So the charts are definitely funky, okay? And you can see here, this big algo candle right here was interesting. It was pretty interesting down here, okay? But I kind of skipped a beat there. Sorry, guys. So this here, because of that distance, that's something to note. And that's why Eric is adding more down here. Distance is very important. Now, I understand that a lot of you that are non-members that are maybe watching this, you might not understand the correlation between distance and retracement. This is something that we discuss heavily at Tricktrades. Okay, so just keep that in the back of your mind. It may look like he's fighting it. He isn't. He's actually thinking, he's playing chess. He's not playing checkers, is what's going on. Okay? So coming back into his entries, he recognizes as it's coming up, we're still failing. So he gets out, right? And he starts coming up and he's tailing out. And he finally gets out down here for a loss. Now, one of the things that I'm going to talk about with this before we go back on camera is dissecting this trade. I love the first entry and payment. I love this down here, okay? Right into the level. We enter into the level. Remember, there's a level there, guys. It's a technical level. It's a very valid trade. It's beautiful. Okay, he corrects his average from what he was still holding up here. He waited for confirmation. Confirmation came in. I don't believe he saw the confirmation himself. He was relying on me. I said it, then he entered. So he chased a little bit. So I need you to start recognizing the confirmation. We'll talk about that here in a minute. The average would have been a lot better, and it would have been a beautiful trade. It would have been a beautiful green trade, okay? The problem is these entries here, and I said that we would give them the benefit of the doubt because there is distance. Now, let me take the other side of that stance, okay? So remember this chart. Burn this chart into your guys' mind for a sec. So the issue that I have with that, Eric, is, and it's something that I talk about quite often. We need to know that there's levels to this game, right? And I know you know that. I know that you see my trading, your trading, a member that has maybe a year on use trading, maybe a member that has a year underused trading. There's levels, right?
Yeah.
We need to respect those levels. So what I'm getting at with this is trading within your wheelhouse. And I know you're the type of person, and you've said it to me before, that you want to push yourself to get yourself over these hurdles. And that's great. That's actually what I want to hear. Now, we need to know when to pull back. So what was the market doing the past couple of weeks? It's been real finicky, right?
It's been funky.
It's been right. It's been selling off more than expected or coming up more than expected. We need to recognize this. Short-term price action, should always dictate our trade management as well as our risk, right? So there's that. Now, again, I can tell you to just like stop doing these things, but we both know, like I say in the Truth Behind the Trade video, we both know that's not going to happen.
Right.
So we need to start getting to the core of this. And this is where like the fun stuff starts beginning with dissecting these trades, because these issues are never trading issues. That's level one thinking. Now, above a level one thinking is, why do you find yourself needing to constantly be in that trade? You worked a beautiful trade. Now, I know some people at home that are watching this is going to look at that and it's going to look like fighting. What you don't understand, that was all guided, and we managed this trade beautifully. It was a beautifully well-managed trade. Now, I don't want to come down on Eric for taking that extra trade, but you do need a little cuff there.
Yes. Yeah.
Because we managed that beautifully. That's a win. Mentality is everything to carry forward into the next day when it comes to trading, okay? So to put yourself in that danger position yet again, we know, number one, that the charts are weaker than expected. Mm-hmm. We know that the market in general isn't doing the things that we want it to do right now, right? Mm-hmm. And number three, you already escaped the building that was on fire.
Right.
You didn't even get burned. It was beautiful. And then you went back in and you took off all your gear and just ran in, covered in gasoline. Do you know what I mean? It's an extreme example, but that's what's going on here, right?
No.
Like,
right.
That is what's going on. And we need to start making the distinction, the correlation between like these dangerous things that we come into in our lives. And we need to understand that it's just as dangerous. Mm-hmm. It's dangerous for this. Now, I'm going to get a little fucking dark here. Mm-hmm. And because this is serious business. Now, I have talked 5 people off of ledges, like literal ledges. Ledges, revolvers placed in their mouths, the whole nine. And it's fucked up. And I know it just got really fucking dark, didn't it? Mm-hmm. What I'm trying to get through to you, and I know you're stable, you've got a great job. I understand that. Things can turn. And I'm not saying that that's going to happen to you. But what I need you to understand is that danger is there. And this is what should give motivation to be super disciplined and to respect where you're at. And again, I know that got super fucking dark, but I've seen the dark side of trading, and it's fucking dark, man. Like thinking back on a lot of those conversations on the phone, going messages just back and forth, and then I phone the fucking guy. It's fucked up, and it happens to people that they're not unstable. Some of them were unstable to begin with. I will say that. But there's one that sticks out in my mind that I fully believe that he was super stable, and it really caught me off guard. And he really fucked up, and he fucked up bad, and then it spiraled. We need to protect ourselves against the fuck up, is what I'm saying. And like I said, you don't strike me as a person that is susceptible to that, but I don't know you that well, right? And I'm not saying that maybe you are, maybe you aren't. I'm just saying we need to understand that this is serious shit, and there's a lot of money at stake, and it's very easy as traders to dismiss that because we're at home, we're in our safe space, right? You know what I mean? Like we're in our homes or our offices at work. Yep. And we're in front of a computer, which is something that we're so used to, we're very comfortable with. And it gives that illusion of the deer going up and having a drink at a beautiful, scenic, calm, dead calm pond. Yeah. What's waiting in that pond, man? A fucking croc, right? And that croc is lack of discipline. That's what it is. And it's just, all it takes is one time. So what I'm saying is we need to catch ourselves. We need to catch ourselves before. We need to put measures in place. So that's what I want to get through to you is this is serious shit. And constantly in that trade, again, it's only a matter of time. It's like a ticking time bomb, right? It's like, what wires do you cut, right? You keep cutting those wires. At some point, just randomly, you're going to hit the wrong fucking wire. And it's going to go right in your face. So I think that that's something that we need to address. We need to walk away. Now, your job doesn't allow you to tap out, right? You can't tap out. No. That person needs you at that moment. You are their safety net, right? So you're bringing that side of your wiring into trading, and you need to kind of fix yourself of that. You need to, we need to access that dead face blank stare, which is fucking great. But what you're doing is you're not allowed to tap out in your job, and you're bringing that into trading, and you have to fucking tap out. Now, I'm not saying tap out on a whim, right? But when that chokehold, it's fucking locked in. It's locked in, man. Like there's no escaping. Even the best mixed martial arts fighters on the planet have to tap out. They have to, or else you're going to fucking go unconscious and maybe you piss or shit yourself in front of, millions of people on TV. We don't want to do that. And instead of pissing and shitting yourself on live TV, you're going to blow up your fucking account. And then what leads to that, everyone that ever doubted you has that they fucking got you by the balls. They got you. Don't ever give them that. So it's knowing when not to tap, and we do not tap out on the macro. The macro meaning your path as a fucking trader. Never tap out. Never back down. Fuck that. You've got too much time into it. You're doing too well. There's no way. That cannot exist. That thought cannot even exist. But on a micro level, the actual day trade, yes, we need to tap out. We need to know when it's like that chart is constantly trending down. And it's like, yeah, we're working the chart. We're working it because that's what we have to do. We can't just tap out immediately because it's not doing what you want it to do. But at some point when it's putting in lower lows, fuck it. It's like we just got back green. Let's end it. Let's end it on a high note, right? Okay. And I think that that's what's going on. A lot of people, you probably don't think there's that big of a correlation between your career as a nurse and a day trader, do you? It probably hasn't crossed your mind that much, right?
No, I didn't think they correlated at all. No.
Yeah, and it does big time because that's where you've spent all of your adult life. Yeah. That's what you've spent all of your adult life doing, right? That is so in you, it's ridiculous. Yeah. So a good example of kind of showing that and the evolution that needs to happen. Watch some of my earliest YouTube videos, or the way I would speak, the way I would even interact with people at the very beginning of Tricktrades. You're going to see I'm real rough around the edges, okay? At a whim, I will put someone in their fucking place immediately. Now, yeah, sure, I still swear. I get it. I curse. But back then, that's a different person. And now, fast forward all these years later, you're going to see an evolution and a difference in that same person, but there's adjustments, right? Because I don't need to be that person anymore, right? I don't need to be that rough around the edges. My life is not rough.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's that's where you're going to have to evolve, where it's all of these attributes that your outside career, being a nurse, is these are great attributes. That's what you want. Yeah. They're going to help you in day trading. They will. but they're also going to hinder you. And it's about recognizing the things that are going to set you back.
Okay.
So that's kind of what I got on the situation. And that's what I would work on. Now, with all of that said, again, beautiful, beautiful management on that trade. Up until that last entry, you should have just fucking cut it. Should have said, fuck it, I managed it. And again, this is where a lot of people watching at home, they're very new to this, and they're having a hard time understanding, or maybe they've never thought about it. There's no difference between a green trade and a red trade. If it is a well-managed trade, that is the end goal. You won. So some of my worst trades are like negative P&L wise, like biggest losing trades, are some of my most well-managed trades, because it could have been a lot worse, but I managed it correctly and I got back to a point where it was a manageable loss. Because sometimes we get caught, right? Like where it's like, oh shit, I didn't see that on the chart. That's my fault, right? But we can't you just don't fold immediately. You need to try and solve the problem. Yeah. So yeah, I think from what I'm seeing with you, Eric, if you just make just those few adjustments, you're going to come ahead a million miles. But it's about recognizing that essentially you're brainwashed, but in a good way. We all are in one way or another. We just need to recognize how we are brainwashed or wired or molded and make those adjustments, because it doesn't suit this new career path, right? And until this is where you're going to have some issues too, because you're going back and forth until you hit that major consistency and you're able to maybe taper out of this being a nurse, right?
Right.
So you're going to have to adjust back and forth. You're going to have to be Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. You have to. Mr. Hyde in front of those charts, but in a good way.
Yeah.
And Dr. Jekyll when you're a nurse, right? Mm-hmm. That you got to be, right? And it's going to be a difficult process, but I don't think it's going to be that difficult.
Right.
Almost turn it into a game. See, this is one little piece of advice that not a lot of people will take. Yeah. But you can be, this is the beautiful thing about working behind the computer. You get to be whoever you want, right? Yeah. If you tell yourself enough that you are royalty, you are a king, there's nothing that can touch you, right? Yeah. You are a badass. That's who you are. That's who you can become. Yeah. And it's like, that's how a lot of like great men and great women got to where they're at, because they were so fucking delusional in a good way that they just made it happen. It's almost like they manifested it. But obviously you need to put in work. Manifesting just doesn't fucking work like that. But you understand what I'm getting at, right? Like it's turn it into a game. Be a completely different Eric in front of those charts. And like be that fucking character, right? Like it doesn't have to be a wild character. It can be just a normal fucking character, right? We don't need to be Travis from fucking, Taxi Driver, right? But shaving fucking mohawk. If you get a fucking mohawk next, I don't know what the fuck I can say about that. But I think like that's kind of like the beautiful thing about this is like we're able to be whoever we want. Just believe it. Just believe it, right? Because what I'm seeing on those charts, man, those entries, other than that one little chase, and it's not out by much, but it was a chase. Was it a chase? Do you remember back to that?
For sure. Yep, I missed it, and it was a chase. I was starting to get nervous, and I chased.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, like there's some, and we're not going to get into it now because that's like a whole other thing. There are acceptable chases, and we can talk about that in momentum. If you bring it up, I'll show you where there's an acceptable chase. But it's about correcting that average. And I guess it's almost like a catch-22. Like you're damned if you do and damned if you don't in that situation, right? Like not to get too confusing, but it's just like being honest about the situation. You need to correct that average. So you got that first, it confirms, starts coming up, you enter. It's a little high and it's a chase, but you kind of have to, because you need to still correct that average, because we know we're pushing. We know we're confirming. So it's like, I can almost give you like 10 being absolutely full leniency on that chase and 0 being fuck that, stay away.
Yeah.
I could give you a 6 on that, a 7 on that, of being, I'm almost all right with that. It wasn't a bad chase or anything. I think it was more of a timing issue, but that's kind of what we're doing in momentum. I'm showing you, I'm trying to give you the most heads up in it. So I think that that's the difference in timing. And it's actually a great example as to why alerts, for all of you people that are in, you know, these free penny stock Discord rooms that may be watching this, do you see the timing issue with alerts, right? And I'm giving so much heads up, way more heads up than you would ever get in any of those Discord rooms. But there's still hesitation, especially if you're really new. Your hesitation's even going to be worse. So just a nice little note for those of you that are. That's why, on a separate note, that's why these like alerts don't work. And it's about training and education first and foremost.
Yep.
So do you have any questions on any of this, Eric, or are you good?
Oh, man, thank you. No, that was so helpful. And I actually have never thought of it the way you just said that. You're right. I am Mr. Ice Cold for my job, and I have to be. And I never realized that carried over. So I was like, that to me is like the light bulb. So thank you so much. And actually, thank you for doing what you said you do. So, I mean, I came on a few years before I started. I dabbled with you guys for a few months. I couldn't stay because I wasn't ready. But you always said, I'm going to teach you how to trade so you don't need you. And I was like, no other guy's doing that. Let's listen to this. And you do that all the time. And I mean, and thank you, because I mean, you're putting tons of work into this again. It almost looks like you've redone everything, you know, and it's just been amazing. And I just like, I don't know how to say thank you, because you don't have to do this. I mean, you don't need the money, you know? I mean, and I appreciate that. So thank you for taking the time and giving us your expertise and doing this. This is, I mean, I never thought this would happen. So I was like, thank you. Yeah.
No, that's great to hear, Eric. And I cannot take all the credit for all these amazing changes. Yeah. I give 100% credit to the man sitting here, Adam.
Yeah, good job, Adam.
We're going to be doing a podcast on team and building the proper team, because what Adam's done so far is,
oh yeah,
it's been amazing. And this is just some of the stuff that you guys have already seen. There's so much that's going on, and it's such an integral part of the team and where we're headed and where we're headed for the future. And that's what I want to stress too. It's like, I want to build self-sufficient traders. I don't want people that are always just chained to the hip. I actually I was talking with Adam about this. I got hit up 3 years ago from a member, and he turned 3,000 into his first million. And he hit me up just this morning or last night. I'd have to take a look at the message. Doesn't matter. And he's traveled now to 15 different countries. Nice. He's still rock and rolling, has 100% freedom with his family, and he's living a nomad lifestyle because he can. And you know, that's fucking awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So, it's doable, man. It's so doable. A lot of people, they want to think that this is so far ahead, but you really are this close. You are. It's just little adjustments. That's it. Yeah. So, you know, we could always do a follow-up with this too, you know, in a month or two, see where you're at after we, you know, catch up with other applicants as well, because we're going to be busy. And for those of you watching, thanks, Eric, for coming, and Adam for producing. All of the information that you're going to need to apply as a non-member or a member for the Truth Behind the Trade series, which is what you just watched. If you want to be a part of it, send in the application. You'll be chosen, and we'll do exactly this. And it's not as scary as what you thought, right? So,
not at all.
So thanks again, Eric. I appreciate you coming out and putting yourself out there. I think there's a lot of people that are going to benefit from this that don't realize, especially that light bulb between the correlation of their outside life and inside life. And it's and it's a big deal. So thanks for coming out, guys, and we'll catch you on the next one. Adios.
Thanks, Adam.
Later.